And to Newswatch, one of our most popular segments, one of the most infuriating things about these lockdowns we've gone through is the cheering that you hear from the ABC. The cheering of them. The national broadcaster, totally hijacked by the left, funded by taxpayers, which means we have presenters who have not lost a dollar of salary in this pandemic, have not lost a single job, don't have to fear lockdowns and things like that. So they look around and they say, hey, this is easy. Let's stick with it. We're all in this together, they say, these people who haven't lost a single dollar. And they cry disgrace at people like me who say, wait, this cost is actually too much. Give you an example of their taxpayer-funded, cushioned complacency. Companies, even many of the biggest, are struggling in this crisis. They don't make a profit, they go under. Well, today, the ABC's Fran Kelly, presenter of Radio National Breakfast, grilled both the head of Wesfarmers and one of its board members after Victoria's government virus bans forced shut all its retail outlets in Victoria, including Bunnings. I mean, they can still do click and collect, but that's it. And Wesfarmers has 2,500 workers in Victoria on its payroll. But to Fran Kelly, hey, no problem. You can keep paying all those wages, right? What's the problem? And this will surely be for just 6 weeks, like she can see into the future. You know, she can see all this. Yeah, sure, it'll end in 6 weeks. Here she is with Wesfarmers boss, Rob Scott.
What you're saying is that your 25,000 in retail, those that aren't required for click and collect, they'll be eligible for 2 weeks full pay. This is a 6-week lockdown. After that, nothing?
Well, look, unfortunately, after that, then team members would need to look at what government subsidies are available.
Should a big company like Wesfarmers be able to do better than that? I mean, you're going to need these workers when the stores open again.
See, Wesfarmers, too big, doesn't get any government support, so it's got to carry this all itself. Here's Kelly moments later with the Wesfarmers director acting as if Wesfarmers was just a Soviet-style operation, you know, the kind that could pay salaries even if there was no business. And, of course, her ABC audience, she thought, would see the sense of that.
I think some people listening would think, well, a big company like Wesfarmers should be able to, for 6 weeks, pay their staff.
Yes, of course, pay them forever, you know. Who cares about shareholders? Who cares if the whole institution goes down the toilet? Joining me is Gerard Henderson, columnist for The Australian, head of the Sydney Institute and author of the fabulously well-read, every Friday, Media Watchdog blog. Gerard, am I being too harsh? An ABC presenter telling a private business, hey, keep paying salaries for 6 weeks or more, when the governor's just told it, shut your stores.
No, I don't think you're ever too harsh, Andrew. I think it's all fine. But it is an example of an ABC employee in secure employment not understanding the business sector. The managing director of Wesfarmers got a responsibility to shareholders. The board's got a responsibility as well. The people have dividends. And there are also people in employment. So you just can't throw all those issues away. And it's understandable if the government closes a business down, the government has a responsibility to step in and help the business out. But that's the responsibility more of the government than it is of the business. The business has to make a profit so that when good times come again, that business will be there going on, employing people, making profits, paying dividends. That's the way business works if you understand business.
I wonder if the ABC's attitude to these shutdowns would change. If every time a shutdown was announced, immediately 20% of ABC staff lost their jobs, like it happens in the private sector. I kind of think their support would be rather muted after that. Now, Gerard, is there anything about this crackdown in Victoria that the ABC would actually criticise? Here's the ABC's coronavirus guru, Norman Swan, father of the Jonathan Swan I showed earlier. Here he is.
I tend to assume that because Victoria has gone into much more extreme lockdown, the previous strategy failed. But that's actually not true.
Of course not, Gerard. The previous strategy did not fail at all. So that is exactly why Victoria's now imposed another lockdown that's throwing 250,000 more Victorians on the dole. That's a sign of success, surely.
Well, apparently so. But this morning, Norman Swan was talking about the current lockdown not succeeding, and Victoria being in the situation where it still had around 12 new cases each day, and then he started to talk about treatment. So I don't know what happened overnight, but so what was something that was destined to be a success was then considered if you went even harder, it wouldn't work any rate, and so you'd have to go back to treatment. So I don't know. I mean, it's a different attitude.
Actually, Gerard, in front of an august presence like yourself, a stickler for detail always, I should clarify something I just said. I said there seemed to be nothing about this lockdown the ABC would criticise. I should have said there is nothing about this lockdown that the Victorian Labor government has done that the ABC will criticise, but there's plenty that it will blame on the federal Morrison government, the Liberal government. Here's a representative bunch of quotes from the ABC's insiders on Sunday. Have a listen.
Why the current restrictions haven't done the job?
Well, obviously there'll be people among that number who are just doing the wrong thing.
Should more have been done to prepare the Victorian homes?
This is a Commonwealth Government responsibility. Let's be clear about it.
The Victorian infections hit triple digits on July 4. Now, at that point, it was painfully obvious that it was a huge problem. And at that point, the federal government should have moved in and provided all those specialist teams. It is their responsibility, and they should have stepped in a hell of a lot sooner.
OK, Gerard, I heard the people blamed, I heard the Morrison government blamed. Something seems to be missing in that analysis.
Yes. Well, it was one of those familiar ABC panels where everyone agrees with everyone else, and so that wasn't unusual. But there was no reference to Premier Andrews, Dan Andrews. It was like there hadn't been any people let out of quarantine. It was like that the nursing homes that are partly the responsibility of the state health department, surely. It wasn't as if any errors had been made there. It wasn't as if the Andrews government had done anything wrong. It was all a pile-on on the people. The people are at fault, and of course the Morrison government. And that's all that was said during that entire panel session discussing that issue, which really was, well, it probably wasn't surprising, but it was hugely deficient.
Well, you remind me of that Bertolt Brecht line of how did it go? You know, the government's lost confidence of the people and we'll get a new people. Yes. John Fane used to be an ABC presenter, again of the left, is now retired, writing the same old for the Age newspaper now. Today declared his admiration for the Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews, saying, I cannot imagine anyone else doing a better job, neither from his front bench nor the opposition. And seeing how Victoria now has by far more deaths than the rest of Australia put together, quarantine hotels breached, quarantine not upheld properly in homes, letting it into aged care homes. I wonder, God, it's a scary thought that John Fane can't think of anyone better